Hey guys, back with you here for another Eris review. So this is going to be episode 3. And this episode really gets into, I think, the thick of just some of what the institution and the society is all about the culture, about how they manipulate people. And it gets into some meaty stuff, I think, in terms of what it's talking about like hierarchies, institutions, and power and greed, and just really how that can be used against those that are less fortunate. But it does get into some meaty stuff with the institution and the way they manipulate people. And obviously, I think what they're doing with Rosa is sort of interesting because she comes from a poorer background. Whereas I think it's been established most of the kids that go there are actually, I think they're meant to be from more richer sort of backgrounds. So it's possible they are targeting Rosa on purpose. Or at least maybe they see her as an interesting little experiment because she does come from this background. But anyway, it really starts getting into that. So we see Carmen with this guy who's like one of the higher officials. I think he was the one we saw at the end of the last episode, the president character. We see the they are lovers. But basically, she's telling them Aris, however you say it, always comes first, and we sort of come second. So they're going to come back to that, obviously, at some point. Now, for a lot of this episode, Jacob and Rosa are separate, which I think is obviously intentional because we're getting sort of their separate sides of the story, like split and like overlap, sort of intersecting sort of thing, because it's sort of relevant to what the story's doing. But it's crucial for the plot that they are kept separate for this story for most of the episode. So we bring up the issue of cell phones and the fact that they were taken away, the fact that this place doesn't want the students to have interaction with the outside world. So Rosa starts wondering about that. She asks one of the girl when they're getting dressed for like this fancy dinner, have any of you got your cell phones back yet? I would like to check mine. And one of them kind of scoffs and says, you really don't know how this place works, does it? So they have like the introductory dinner, which is like to welcome the new recruits. And after that, because they basically got like people's cell phones on trays and what have you, so Rosa kind of nicks it away from the woman who off the tray, and it then becomes a bit of a thing where Rosa gets quite defensive and upset because they're trying to stop her from taking her cell phone. And she then sees all the missed calls and the messages from her father because her mother's been in hospital and in a bad way. So I think to kind of keep Rosa on board and gain her trust, Carmen steps in and agrees to take her to the hospital, agrees then she'll drive her there. So it's very much a tactic to, not isolate Rosa too much and not risk losing her. So they go to the hospital. Now this is the part of the episode where they kind of split between her and Jacob's plot. Jacob, we've seen at the start of the episode, is very anxious still, and as Rosa is going off to the hospital to visit her mother, we see Jacob's plot where they're still very concerned about what he might do. The fact that he tried to escape in the previous episode, the fact that he's showing these signs of panic. So they take him off into the room, and you've got this character, the Führer, which, yeah, nothing subtle about her title, but they're doing like these weird like tests on him, like they're going into his subconscious and they're asking all these questions. And it's sort of important, and we see like their two stories like paralleled, because Rose is at the hospital and she finds out that her mother tried to commit suicide, and this isn't the first time, this has happened before, so that's important because we weren't sure what quite had happened to her. And I think by putting on the face of, the kind of goody who took Rosa to the hospital, I think Carmen is sort of trying to play her off against her father who's there. And her father, again, is the one who in a very simple, basic sort of way, is the one kind of losing control, because he's obviously saying, where have you been? Where have you been? She needs you. So he's the one giving his daughter, quite rightly in a way, being honest, your mother needs you, you need to come home with us. And this sort of, it then becomes this sort of basic choice. Rosa's father, sorry, against Aris, against the instant, Carmen standing there with this expression, her father, and obviously because of drama, Rosa has to go back to she picks that side, so it's showing how she's being more and more seduced by things, by their ways and by their lifestyle, and just wanting this opportunity. I think, again, you have to take a lot on faith, and you just have to go with it because of it being the premise of the show, because it does feel very forced, the way Rosa has gone through these changes, and the way she would turn her back on her family pretty much and just go for this new life. It plays into the themes of the show, and you just have to go with it. It's just part of the drama. It's not particularly incredible, but I think it's just more to do with the themes of the show, really, and what they're doing, and for the sake of drama. So at the same time, the Fuhrer and a couple of others are really manipulating Jacob, and they get into his past and his father, the fact that obviously his father was a member of Aris, and just how dark things are, and they get him to admit he's been having suicidal thoughts, and the fact that he feels lonely, and they casually drop in Rosa's name because she's pretty much his only friend at this place anyway. So what they're doing with Rosa and what they're doing with Jacob, I think it really shows like the way the rich and the way certain governments manipulate the poor, and the way they like draw a divide between them and others, or just put a wrench into the poor, between the poor in general. But it's the way they sort of cast aspersions on them and sort of blame them in a way for their life and not being fortunate enough, not being as fortunate as they are, sort of really using their power and their money and everything just to belittle, the poor, the worse off than them, sort of thing. So I think it's really showing that, the fact that they in this scene with Jacob, they twist it on him. They sort of suggest that it's something to do with him. It's a problem with him or his family, similar to what they do with Rosa, rather than just obviously owning up and facing up. Then it's actually what they've been doing to him at Aris. So that at this point they've basically, sort of kind of gotten Jacob to say he'll get Rosa on board, he'll control Rosa for them. That they're playing them at both ends is what's basically happening. But I think because Rosa's new and they're concerned and they want to keep her on board and sort of mould her in their sort of fashion, then they sort of see Jacob as the best way to do that. So then we have this dinner party at like this doctor's like mansion or something, and this is where the episode kind of starts going batshit insane. I mean, there's been moments like this in the past 2 episodes, but so Rosa randomly goes off and has a threesome. She's seduced by this richer guy, but then this other girl joins in, and because it's this show, it has this weird sort of mood to the scene. But whatever, she's I guess trying new things out. And it becomes this thing where Jacob is looking for her as well. So as again, they're intentionally separated in this episode. Now Jacob, he's got like injured hands. I think this is something to do with his suicide attempt. And this guy at one point comes up to him and really starts bullying him, really gets in his face about his problems and tries to keep him in line. And there's just this weird energy where suddenly some power or something appears to come from Jay. It's a really weird scene, but he just has this power. I mean, judging by what happens next, I think he's passed over some of his experience to this other guy, or just some sort of bad sort of energy or luck. The guy really freaks out and he sort of goes off on his own, and then he goes into the gallery and he's confronted by the creatures we've seen from like previous episodes, like these mutated sort of human creature type hybrids, and they just go after him and we don't see him again, so I think the assumption is he's been killed by them. But yeah, that happens after like Jacob's like sort of thing with him. So but you do get these batshit insane moments where it kind of goes all bonkers and a little bit silly, but I mean, maybe depending on how much there is to this series, maybe those moments are kind of the standouts, but certainly not sure what to make of them. But you get to this point where Jacob can't find Rosa, and then Rosa the next morning wakes up and she has a shower. She's obviously had like this threesome. They really go full on, or quite full on anyway. So she goes to have a shower and then she finds the guy dead in the shower, the one who she slept with. And Jacob is downstairs talking to the Führer, but he's really spaced out, really distressed. But the way it cuts is it makes it look like Jacob has killed him, but you know, I'm pretty sure that that's not the case. So the ending was kind of cheap, I thought, the way they just threw in this thing just for the sake of drama, and it was just a little cheap, you know, going to this obvious place of, oh, did Jacob kill this guy? But it's just going to be, I think, something else for like the society to have to try and cover up in the next episode. So we'll see what that leads to. But anyway, that's been Aris season 3, or not season 3, getting ahead of myself. Episode 3 of the 3rd season, and I'll be back with another Aris review soon. Thanks for listening. See you guys again soon. Goodbye.